What's going down, y'all? Rooster McNuggets. We're gonna talk about the pussy trap. This is quick moving stuff, so I want you to stay with me on this one. You know, we're talking about how society has gotten to the place where there's this lack of dick. You know, like male assertiveness, right? So the dick and the pussy are a one and a zero that go into each other, right? That's the regeneration process, right? So there's no zero is not better than one's not better than zero. They're actually opposite sides of the spectrum that complement one another. The same thing with the female male perspective. So one's initiatory or trajectory, and the other one is receptive or relational. And so, and that those are generalizations. So you have both tendencies in females and males, but the male and the female, generally speaking, reflect these principles. So there's an old proverb that says, you know, what is it if a man gains the world if he sells his soul, right? And so basically, like, what is a man's basic job is to get people from point A to point B, and but if he becomes an asshole along the way and nobody wants to hang out with him when they get to point B, well, then that's no good either. So that's where the woman is checking her man, like, you know, look, you have to be aware of all the relationships. We want to get people there too, and there's all these dynamics between people. And so the woman is more focused on these intimacies between people, and men are focused on the intimacy of reaching goals, reaching destinations, as it were, you know, setting a standard, or, you know, these forms, as opposed to it'd be like the difference between like the letter and the gap. You know, you need both, right? So yeah, so like, well, what's happening is the pussy trap is that, you know, women use this to regulate their men, you know, so to incentivize and punish or discipline certain behaviors. And so, like, you know, the men does this too, you know, where they'll deny the woman the same kind of attention, maybe a different type of attention, but basically, you know, it's yin and yang. It goes both ways. But right now we're in the phase where it's gone the other direction, where, you know, women are basically like, you know, talent calling the shots right now. I'm in the Bay Area, so I get it. Like, it's super pronounced out here for me, you know. It's like, and so that's what I wanted to talk about. How, like, to the extent where what the male's job as an initiator is to talk about certain things that are difficult to do, that the woman might necessarily be tended towards, because it may put certain relationships in tension, you know. And so, as the man is more focused on getting to the place, then he's going to kind of subjugate that tension, you know, in order to get to the place. Because, you know, but the opposite is true too. Like, why we need to get to the place, right? So if we all get along, but we starve, that's no good either, right? So yeah, so the woman is pulling back the pussy so they can reinforce certain behaviors, and what happens is you're regulating the male tendency to initiate. And so what is it that they're regulating? Initiation into different things that we would say are taboo. And so, like, well, one of those things is like, well, like we said, we don't want to threaten relationships. So women are super sensitive about this. And so when you have a woman dominant society, you know, people will really frown on anybody speaking about negative stuff, because it's bad. but and from a male perspective, a negative is part of the initiatory process and looking at the stuff in order to see what the problem is so that we can come up with the solution. And if you don't do that, you don't see the problem, and it just gets worse. And so, and that's what's happening, is that because these things aren't being talked about, because it's really the male's job to really, and of course I'm considering females in this, as well. Like, they could do like the male's job, just as good as a male can if they were focused on doing as much. So it's not like it's solely one or the other's job, but I'm trying to point out that it's not getting done in our society because of that dynamic missing, and so well, what needs to happen is the opposite dynamic, where the man checks the woman, right, and realize that she can't get no dick without giving up the pussy, right? And so why is she always in the driver's seat, And so, but we have to switch our priorities and be balanced in order to regulate that. So if we're off balance and we're constantly catering to the woman, then they're going to get stronger and we're going to get weaker. And that's going to become a lopsided relationship, and increasingly so. And so, well, we have to wean ourselves off of that shit. So, so you have to start looking at these things, and what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that if you're like me and you're challenging these norms, I mean, good luck if you're in the Bay Area like I am. Like, literally, like, I can't even be in relationships anymore because as soon as I talk about anything negative, it's easy for a woman to just like, I guess I just got that look to me about it, and then I got some of my past that comes around it, but it's like basically, it's real easy for women nowadays to just be like, oh, he's a bad guy, and because it's so indoctrinated into society that when people show up, if you have like even the attitude that potential exists, then you're guilty on sight. Like, they look at you and they're like, yeah, he could do that. Yeah, I could see him pulling it off. And so like, then you're automatically that guy. And so, and treated as such. And so, well, that further retards that inclination for people to push those things because, well, basically I've lost children, I've lost relationships, I've lost, things near and dear to me because, I'm trying to pass along a quality message of something that there's certain things that need to get across in this message of life that we're not transmitting to the next generation. And part of that is, you can't save your face and your ass at the same time. If you're so busy looking good, then you never learn how to be okay with being a fool so you could learn something. And so we're not learning. We're scared to look like we don't know what it means to be like men because we'll be identified as such, and then we'll be further subjugated. But that's already happening, is what I'm trying to say to y'all. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, it works on a motherfucker like me, but the only real liberty from that is to know within oneself that, you're not playing that game, that you're not going to shy away from truths. I mean, I have to definitely play chess. I have to be tactful about like the way things I talk about certain things nowadays, and like, how to, and even that is being restrained, and there's a coordinated attack on that. And so, yeah, that's what I'm addressing and bringing to people's attention. So, if you're feeling like that this is off balance, something ain't right, well, this is part of that. We're off balance, we're off chemically, and so we kind of know this, But then when somebody tries to kind of exercise that muscle because it's goofy, it doesn't feel right, and so it doesn't come off right, and people think that it's not necessarily right because it looks goofy or it doesn't feel right. But then there's a part of us that are like, nah, there's something in that needs to be said, and so that's the process that we're in now. And I just want to encourage people to, keep it within their own envelope, try to, take our own inventory. It's easy to project, especially when we're scared, but when we're in those deep times of projections, it's also an opportunity to use the skills and the tools that have been given us in order to clearly see like how we're deceiving ourselves, because we have the tools to point out, what is distracting us, and so and in so doing get down to the root of it, and so that's what we should be doing.